Good morning. We're glad that you're able to join with us. We're excited to be able to present to you the hot off the presses results from our 2021 home garden variety trial. And you as the participants, this is your data, right? So you're a citizen scientist, and we're really glad to be able to share this with you and get your feedback on what we do next year. So in summary for 2021, we got everything released in late January. We were touched earlier than we were last year. And we were able to mail pretty much all the way through mid-April, which was different than last year, which was, of course, all the mail shortened by COVID and that sort of thing. So this was our highest participation year to date. We had 182 people who participated, so that was awesome. And close to 800 trials were sent out. So we had several regulars, more flowers than usual. Well, I guess it depends on whether you count borage as an herb or a flower, but we had some new stuff, and so it was a really fun kickoff year. So we do always try to get a little bit of a perspective on how people grow and what their experiences are. And so these are just a little bit of the numbers from this year's trial. Our participants had an average of 23 years gardening. And while you may look at that and think, oh my goodness, like that is a huge number, keep in mind that we have several people who have 50 or 60 years experience gardening. And so we also had a lot of 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and 6s to come up with an average of 23. So we had a lot of people who grow in small spaces. Their average estimated garden poundage was 45 pounds. And most of the people who returned their evaluations reported no failure. Certainly, we may have had some trials that failed that we didn't get all the information back on. But overall, I would say, and if you'd asked me this 3 or 4 years, I probably would have guessed wrong. But we probably see the most issues, so to speak, with more germination and seed stand types of issues than we do with wildlife or even insect or disease. So where are people growing? And these are the most interesting growing location numbers that we've seen to date. So last year, I think for the first time, we had just over half of our trial locations that were in raised beds or containers. And this year it shifted even further. So we actually are almost 60-40, not in ground to in ground. And we have more and more folks who are using some combination of compost or compost and organic fertilizer. So, that pretty much tells you a lot about the demographics of our audience. We have more than half the people who are gardening on small space and more than half that are using some combination of compost and organic fertilizer. And while we talk about the data, Virginia and I love data, but we also very much value this project because it's our opportunity to interact with you. And so every year, I say, hey, send us your pictures, and you do. And so we love the communication that takes place throughout the year, how this impacts your gardening and how this connects with the people that are in your life. And so the pictures and the notes that we get back with grandkids and vegetables and how this relates to your gardening, this is the fun stuff. So we just want to thank you for that. So this is our results roundup. And I don't know, Virginia, if you want to say just a little bit about you've already run the stats on everything, right?
Yeah, so everything has been analyzed statistically. Sometimes you'll see there's no differences, and that could be an effect of just the number of trials that went out. So sometimes when the trial numbers are very low, you're less likely to find differences. So over here, you'll see how many people actually grew that trial, the performance rating overall, and whether they would recommend either of those varieties, and then whether it came out as being significantly better for one versus the other. So here you can see that Contender had significantly higher yield. More people put that this variety yielded better than this variety. And so we evaluated yield, germination, flavor, what else?
Appearance.
And
just a general kind of health.
Yeah. Oh yeah, plant health. And so you'll see those listed down here if there's any significant differences. And so I thought it was really interesting, some of the ones that we did see significant differences in. So
Yeah, we actually did see several that were significant this year. So bush beans is always one of our most popular trials, and I think that these may be some of the highest bean ratings that we have seen. I will say Contender was fast and productive out of the gate. This is actually a picture of Wyatt, which gave beautiful beans. But everything, these are just high numbers all the way around. So like Virginia said, for the ratings and the recommendation percentage, if there was significant difference, I went in and coded these red. If there are words down here that's significantly better, then they were in fact significant. So the filet beans, and this was a gorgeous picture that came in from one of our trialers of filet beans. This year we had a yellow wax bean and a traditional green. And of course, these are, not significantly different, but the results were pretty positive actually for both of them all the way across. And that may be one of the better yellow beans that we've ever tried. So that was a very good result there. For the heritage beans, now we've done heirlooms and different things in the past. This one was fun because these are actually both very Tennessee specific, or at least a relationship to Tennessee and our direct region. And for pole beans, I mean, these numbers are great. That is actually Cherokee Black or Cherokee Trail of Tears. There in the left-hand corner, and these both are beans that can be eaten fresh or they can be dried. And so you can see really a purple tinge there. And when these beans are mature, then the beans themselves are in fact black. So so these were really good trials. We've had a few mixed results with some of our heirlooms, and so it was good to see people having really good success and experiences with these beans this year. Okra is one that we kind of went in a different direction this year. It turns out there's not that many hybrid okras out there, and we're starting to kind of cast a net to try some different things. Every other year we grow Clemson Spineless and it continues to do well. So this year we kind of tried some different ones. So Carmine Splendor is a hybrid, and it did pretty well, not significantly better than Silver Queen, but I definitely saw some notes coming in. We definitely had some people who had strong preferences in this category, and they definitely like the appearance, kind of the standing quality, which is important in okra. How fast does it get to over mature? And so Silver Queen was an open pollinated heirloom that was really light green. And those were our general okra results. So I wanted to share this picture of the cucumbers before I popped in the data. This is Market More 76 up here, and this is White Wonder. So it just turned out to be almost more of a pickling cucumber than a slicing cucumber. And this is DMR 401, which was in a trial another year. But this was the first one of our trials that actually popped up significant. And I would say it had to do with yield. It had to do with productivity. Both of these were open pollinated, but we just found Market More to be, much more broadly applicable rather than the heirloom White Wonder. Some, cute, interesting fruit, but probably not broadly appealing and predictable and productive enough to really get great ratings overall. Pickling cucumber. So this was an interesting one. And we've talked about this some in previous years. You've probably heard me complain about cucumber beetles. And one of the big issues that we see with cucumber beetles is their ability to spread bacterial wilt. There's not a bunch of resistance or anything, but there are a few cultivars that have some ability to withstand or not attract cucumber beetle feeding as well. County Fair is listed to be one of those that has some resistance to bacterial wilt, lower levels of cucurbitacins that may attract that type of feeding. But anyway, we didn't really see any benefit to that potential higher level of insect resistance. Statistically, they were similar, but we saw trends that County Fair may not have even been the most highly valued in the trial. So interesting results, and this is why we trial. And we did get some fun pictures from a lot of our small space gardeners who appreciated the fact that we had a more compact cucumber. This was probably one of my favorite trials. We actually grew Greenlight last year and it did very well. So we decided, hey, let's bring it in against the heavyweights. Diva is a seedless cucumber that's been on the market for years, an all-American selection that is really widely grown. And Greenlight definitely held its own against some of our old standards. So you can see first fruit and yield, and while not statistically different, the ratings and the recommendation percentage definitely show some interesting trends. This was one that we decided to just kind of flip a coin and really send out some tomato seeds for the first time, which we had not done very much before, because we know, there's some challenges of starting seeds, but this was one that really did well. I mean, these are great ratings across the board, and we had a lot of people who appreciated the container trials. This was maybe our highest participation trial. We had to keep ordering in more tomato seeds. And so you can see recommendation percentage, ratings, just very good across the board. Our folks like the flavors of those smaller red tidy treats. I actually had to take a few pictures to get ready for the presentation. Yesterday, these are the Black Futsu and the Georgia Candy Roaster squash. This is actually a continuation of a trend that we have seen for several years in the trial, which is that these longer season crops like pumpkins and winter squash tend to be a little bit more trying for folks. They take up more room. You have more time for pest or disease issues to come in. So you can see, kind of mediocre recommendation percentages and ratings for both of these. I haven't eaten any of them yet, so y'all, if you have any opinions about the taste, we would love to hear that. Pretty much battling to a tie. These are more traditional size butternuts this year. We kind of got away from the baby butternuts, and so very good ratings. The more traditional Waltham, as well as the Waldo, which is newer powdery mildew resistant cultivar, but pretty much good ratings across the board, even though we didn't have quite as high a trial participant number there. Oh, okay. Chef Dean has already chimed in on the chat and said that he's already trialed in the family the Futsu and the Candy Roaster, and it sounds like there are family differences. So so some people prefer each one. These high participation item for us, these were the small squash, so lemon sun on the left, 8-ball on the right, pretty much battling to a draw there. These were kind of our fun kid or slightly older kid selections, but those 8-ball squash are always fun. This was one of the most interesting trials, and I can say that on this one, the trial ratings were very, very much what I saw in our own trials in Knoxville. High participation. We've done a lot of the solid green zucchini, and so this year we kind of mixed it up, and we did Boston Nova, which is an all-American selection that we have grown before, and that did very well in the 2017 and 2018 trials. And we trialed it against Green Tiger, which was a new cultivar. I had actually not even grown it until we grew it in this trial. And you can see there actually a statistically different rating percentage there, and really overall ratings very high for Green Tiger. So you can see still a good number of people would recommend Boston Nova, still a good cultivar, but this was a really interesting example of some of the new cultivars coming in and definitely giving some of our old favorites a run for their money. And
I would add in on that one in the section where people put down why they would recommend it. For the Green Tiger, I mean, it was everything: appearance, flavor, yield, health. They put a very high percentage of people put that they would recommend it for all of those things. And then the Boston Nova, I guess people were just over it. Maybe they didn't have as much to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to me, we're starting to have done these trials long enough that we're starting to see the trajectory. I mean, it makes complete sense, right? We may have something that trialed really well half a dozen years ago that we may now have some newer options that, can outpace it on the market. And so I think it's exciting to see that, that we're open to new stuff, that we're trialing it, and that we now have some things that, this does fine, but we might be able to offer you some even better suggestions. So these were our two yellow zucchini, on the top chiffon, and on the bottom gold rush. And this, once again, we had a statistically significant difference. And I will say, in our trials, the chiffon, I mean, it's really true. The chiffon and the green tiger were the ones that we had for zucchini that were the longest yielding. Towards the end of the season, we had those great big fruit that just kept producing, and we couldn't keep up. So, this was another fun one. I love multicolored novelty items, and I just thought these were just the most gorgeous zucchini that I'd ever grown. So this was a fun one to include in as well. Now, speaking of trials that just kept yielding and yielding, yellow squash continue to be kind of our longest running squash. Typically, their harvest season will be longer than zucchini, which means that most of the time their total will be higher. This was definitely a battle of the heavyweights this year. Grand prize was by, a pretty good margin the favorite last year. Tempest had done well in previous years. And here's an example of one that we have trialed before, coming up against one that had done really well recently, and, both of them continuing to do really well. So there you go, 100%, 100%. I don't really know much else that we could say, both really strong performances. Sorry, I think the basil is upside down in this picture, but you know what basil looks like. And this is one, and actually I'll throw this out there, and then you guys can think about it and decide, what your opinion is. I think we've done basil for now 3 or 4 years, and this is one that we just didn't get a ton of, feedback on. The ratings are okay, the recommendations are okay. I think it's possible we may be time to take a break from basil and, try some other herbs this year. But Devotion is the downy mildew resistant cultivar. Newton is a little bit more traditional large leaf Genovese that has, some fusarium resistance, but not downy mildew. But overall, both of them did fine. So Borage was new for us this year, and the plants were beautiful. They as I was reading the results, as in summaries as they were coming in, what y'all were experiencing was actually exactly what I saw in the trial plots, is that the white borage produced beautiful plants. It just hardly ever got around to flowering. There just wasn't much flowering. And so it was, apparently, a cultivar nuance. We always used to say in the greenhouse world, back when we were trying to get our white geraniums to be as, robust and durable as our red geraniums, that sometimes those white flowers just didn't quite have the oomph. And I guess that's a very technical term, that may have, been what we saw here. We just saw a lot more bloom and a lot better productivity out of the blue. So Virginia, you want to talk about the flowers?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, because you probably grew them more than I did, so I figured I'll turn the floor.
Well, actually, I didn't this year. So I don't know if you have any more insight on these than I did, but very, very similar results for both of the zinnias. People highly recommended them, mainly for their appearance. There weren't a lot of comments, particularly on plant health or germination or any differences there. And then
one of the things that we did get back about the zinnias, which, yes, very good comment, is we've kind of done cutting long stem zinnias. We've done more bedding plant zinnias. These were more of a bedding plant selection, and we could probably denote that in the trial materials a little bit to talk some about height. So yeah, that was a good point.
Yeah. Now the marigold is a different story. If you want to go to that slide. All right, so there were huge differences in the marigolds that people like the superhero spry. It won out for germination, health, first flower, number of flowers, appearance, and overall. So people really, really liked this one a lot for many different reasons. And 100% would recommend, and you can see that that rating is very, very high compared to the lemon gem.
I heard Marcia chuckling in the background on that one. And so Marcia, I just have to think that maybe you and I are the people that actually liked the lemon gem the best. I'm telling you, I love that plant.
Why did you like it?
Well, so this is my hypothesis. This is completely non-data driven. So my hypothesis is that people who really like marigolds liked the superhero spry because it was a traditional, very productive, very pretty marigold. And people who don't particularly like marigolds liked the lemon gem because it didn't look that much like a marigold.
Maybe so.
I would agree with that. And I would add a third person who likes lemon gem, and that's Barbara Bunting. But the interesting thing is I still have 2 lemon gems going in my home garden.
Wow.
It's cool.
That is cool.
But they either, at Concord, they either did really nice and looked like that image in the picture, or they just looked really scraggly. There was great variability from plant to plant. So lemon gem either looked really nice or not nice at all.
Well, and
where superhero was much more consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that probably has to do with, you know, with their breeding. The superhero is kind of our traditional bedding plant marigold, and the lemon gem is actually a different species. And so it may just be that it didn't quite have, you know, that that breeding history that made it quite as consistent. So we did have a couple of cool season crops, and y'all know I love lettuce. And so, you know, pretty good, I mean, very good, really, ratings across the board for both of these lettuce cultivars. Sandy was rated as significantly better on yield. The rest of the numbers you can see are pretty similar. This is Sandy on the left. This is actually probably a 4-year-old picture of Sandy, but you can see sort of like a deer tongue / oak leaf. And both of these are rated, you know, pretty strong against folding and things like that. Swiss Chard, once again, you know, pretty strong ratings and 100% on the recommendation. So we had Bright Lights, All-American Selections winner, as well as Rhubarb, more of a traditional red, and, you know, pretty much battling to a draw on that one. But we did get in some gorgeous pictures there from around the state. And then our final trial was the youth trial, and I have to give Sarah credit for this. I don't ever like get out my baskets for that photogenic a picture, so this was pretty cool. And we did asparagus beans or yard long beans for the kids for this trial. So so that is so that's pretty much the roundup there. You can see not significantly different on the ratings, but people did rate the red noodle as significantly better on yield. So
yeah, and I would say too,
yeah,
for the yield, it was a very big difference. So, you know, we had 10 people do this trial. It was 9-1 on preferring the red noodle over the Python for yield. So big difference in yield.
all right. And I grew some of the red noodles, but I didn't actually harvest them very effectively. Sometimes the bean yields are a little bit neglected while the tomatoes and peppers are getting picked. So did you actually grew these, Virginia?
Nope, I did not grow anything this year, sadly.
Okay,
but I
sorry.
was curious, did we tell people how to cook these things? Like, are you supposed to chop them up? I've never grown a bean that big.
We probably didn't provide very much culinary direction on these. I guess you just gotta snap them and cook them. As with other red beans, these turn green when they're cooked, or at least, you know, lose most of that red color. Oh, we got a couple of comments in there that people still have their Swiss chard growing. That's pretty cool. I have some in the greenhouse, but it was definitely a second seeding. So our, we kind of ran through that in 20 or 25 minutes because it's exciting to see what we've accomplished this year, but we're also in that fun stage where we can think about what we might want for next year. And so this is just kind of a few ideas that we have bouncing around. I'm hoping for some of our master gardeners and some of our demo gardens to do more grafted peppers. I know we've got Marsha on here, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about how some of those went in the Concord garden. We've done basil for a while. Maybe it's time for some new herbs. We had a lot of fun with the compact tomatoes. Maybe we need to think about some of those other ornamental edibles, maybe some new cool season. And we are really open to, heirloom options and other ideas that folks have. So I think I'm going to.
And also, this isn't on here, but we were thinking about a pollinator garden for our youth trial this year. So giving them a pollinator mix and letting them kind of identify what flowers are in there and which flowers get more pollinators attracted to them and things like that, which they liked better, which it looked like the pollinators liked better. But we're still open to ideas there on the youth gardening as well.